Very good. Thank you, Captain Corbett. Again, Captain Bud Corbett of the Pasadena Police Department, who's been listening in on the negotiations over there, but he's about as far away from it as we are. He gets a bit closer at times and can hear a thing or two that we can't hear from our vantage point. One of the things that he passed on to us a moment ago, just before you came to us live, was that this guy apparently has been writing a note. They don't know what is inside the note. They don't know what he's doing, but as you heard me mention, it would indicate that perhaps he's put the gun down, which would be good news. It is indeed very good news. The man is somehow communicating with the police officers, but obviously they're very concerned about what he might be writing down as they observe what he's doing inside that car. The sniper team still on the scene here, still trying to find out what exactly is going to happen next.
Suspect. There has been some communication, but it's been very limited on the part of the suspect. At this point, all the suspect has done is roll his window down and acknowledge with his hand that he can hear what the officer's saying. The officer's focal point at the moment is to try to get the suspect to put his gun down, which has been in his mouth most of the time.
Okay. When you said that's the only communication is he can hear them, we were hearing something about writing some kind of note.
He did appear to be writing a note of some kind, but they don't, that is, the officers don't know what the content was.
Okay, so he hasn't thrown it out of the window trying to communicate that way?
He has not.
Okay, have you identified this man?
No, in fact, I checked about 10 minutes ago, and at this point, they still do not know his identity.
Okay. We understand, how's the officer who was injured in that accident during this chase?
I really don't know for sure. I understand that an officer was involved in a major accident, but quite frankly, I don't know with any degree of certainty whether the officer was injured in the course of this wreck or somebody else was.
We understand this man also being wanted for other robberies other than the one that started all this today. Do you know how many he's wanted for?
He's a suspect in about 4 robberies since the last week of June.
What type of robberies? Have they all been like cleaning stores or convenience stores? Or
no, there hasn't really been a specific pattern necessarily, but it's primarily a resemblance from one case to another on the description and partial license numbers of the vehicle.
So is that really, I mean, other than the robbery at the cleaner, did somebody recognize him that really sparked this off as well?
It wasn't a matter of necessarily recognizing as being involved in another robbery. The description, offered some similar aspects, and the police responded to that.
Okay. And where exactly, I mean, we know where the cleaners start. Where did the officers first pick up the pursuit, and when did he first take off?
I don't know exactly where it started. I think that it was on Pasadena Boulevard in Deer Park. But the exact location on that street, I don't know.
Okay. And he hasn't said anything at all to the officers other than keeping the gun in his mouth or the handset that he can hear them?
As of about 10 minutes ago, he had not.
Thank you again. That was Pasadena Police Captain Bud Corbett. As we have been telling you before, there hasn't been a lot of talk back and forth between the suspect excuse me, it's dusty out here, and the SWAT negotiator. Again, that note that we mentioned probably about 30 minutes ago, suspect never threw it out of the window, so they don't know what that was about. Right now, as we've been telling you, he's just keeping police at bay by keeping that gun in his mouth or under his chin. Bill, Wendy?
Okay, Robert, thank you very much. That's Robert Arnold. He's live on the scene there, talking with Captain Corbett, who had held the briefing that we listened in on earlier, telling us that, giving us the new information that this individual is a suspect in at least 4 robberies since the latter part of June, because the robberies, even though they differed in some aspects, were similar enough to make them think that this guy who pulled off this robbery this afternoon in Pasadena also pulled off 4 others in a very brief period of time here, just in about the last 30 days or so. It certainly seems that way because of the way that he's conducted himself this afternoon, using stolen license plates so that he couldn't be readily identified by anybody who happened to see him driving away and gave police the license plate number. Also, by the way he conducted the police chase, he's carefully thought out what he would do in given circumstances, up to and including the one he finds himself in now, actually not find himself in, but has put himself in, which is a deadly standoff with police here, potentially deadly standoff with police, where he would either shoot himself or they him. But his most dangerous move has been here, brandishing that gun even at himself, because we can see the door, Wendy, of his truck is open now, or it appears to be, because as long as he has a gun in his hand, he is a direct threat to police officers, and they will not, believe me, hesitate to shoot him if that gun moves in their direction.
That is one new thing that we can notice
right
here.
There at the
Absolutely, from this live picture here. And even though the SWAT protocol has us has our helicopter positioned further away, the door is open. The door of the driver's side of that pickup truck is open.
And there's a police officer right there at the truck, too, right in the back, probably close enough where he can talk, but where he's behind, you can see him right behind the bed of the pickup. And now I see, you can almost see somebody.
You see a whole grouping of them, of the police officers that came down the embankment, and it looks like they even have like a shield holding. You see that shield there?
Yeah.
That's
it looks like they've moved in on the truck here, and they may have negotiated. See the officer moving back up now, the embankment. But then to the right, just on the other side of that little grassy knoll, just beyond which you can see the open door of the pickup, I saw 2 or 3 officers moving towards the truck there. So apparently...
It seems that their efforts then to communicate with him are moving forward.
I can almost guarantee that he's put that gun down, because if he hadn't, you wouldn't see the officers that close to the truck.
Yeah, there's no way they would be that comfortable with moving.
Look, now
that
everybody's
close.
scattering, walking away. I think they've got this guy in custody. Yep, obviously they do, because everybody's walking away to a successful conclusion. They have the man in custody because the men are walking away here as we begin here at the top of the hour. This is KPRC Local 2 at 6 o'clock, KPRC in Houston, as we identify ourselves for legal reasons. And our 6 o'clock news just beginning here as this drama comes to an end. An aggravated robbery suspect now in the custody of police officers. He has given himself up. Even though we did not see the surrender because we were ordered to move our helicopter back, we can tell by the way that the police are conducting themselves here on the scene that the man is
wearing
now
a dark short sleeve blue shirt and dark pants. We saw him walking up out of the ditch where his truck was. You see the back of his head there as he talks with Pasadena police. That's a Pasadena police vehicle there.
There he is now.
Then they're walking him there to put him into a squad car, and finally, 3 hours after this began, finally bring this to a conclusion.
And we were wondering earlier if they had an idea of who the gentleman was, and because they probably got a beat on it. Look, the officers are congratulating each other for a job well done, and they deserve it. This ended with, considering how long this has lasted, it ended with no serious injuries that we are aware of. And the suspect who fired a shot, who robbed a store, who showed a gun to a store owner, to a dry cleaner owner in Pasadena shortly after 3 o'clock. He's now in custody, and police, you see, are talking to him. So the communications that were going on.
And he rolled his window down from time to time. And again, the focal point, probably for the past hour or more, has been to try to get the suspect to put the gun down, and he finally has.
Kind of recount again exactly what finally led up to surrendering.
I don't know exactly what took place just a moment before, because I was here with you folks, but when I understand, he at one point did get out of the vehicle. He walked up the embankment toward the SWAT officers with his hands up. He made a comment to the effect of, "Shoot me." Of course, the officers chose not to do that, and they took him in custody without further incident.
How things doing?
I don't have any details on that specific aspect, but they took him into custody and handcuffed him in the normal way.
Captain, at this point, do we have any idea what was behind this guy's run from the law?
Well, I understand that the plates on the vehicle were stolen, and he is a suspect possibly involved in multiple robberies in Pasadena and perhaps other surrounding areas.
Obviously, when stuff like this comes up, you talk about the pursuit policy. Why wasn't this guy taken out any earlier?
Well, I don't know exactly, what was done in every step of the way, but it was just a matter of, having to deal with the environment and constantly evaluating the facts and the risks in the course of the chase. And when the opportunity presented itself, we did get cooperation from Precinct 8, who was able to put down the spike, which assisted in stopping the vehicle. And that incident occurred at the nearest toll booth, and brought the thing to an end where we are now.
Jeff, if you can hear us, if you could ask the officer about the identity of the man, if he yet knows who this is.
Certainly, I'll get a chance.
Halfway up the embankment toward the SWAT officers, made that statement, and then basically surrendered.
Captain, do we know who this man is at this point?
We may know at this point, but I didn't know as of 15 minutes ago.
He didn't put up any fight at all when he was in.
He did not.
All right, that is the very latest from the scene out here on the East Belt. I'm told that we're probably going to have to move rather quickly because the Beltway is going to be opened up now that this scene is clear. As you can see, that obviously authorities are starting to break down now. This is one of the SWAT team officers who had this suspect in his sights this entire time, obviously ending exactly the way that the Pasadena police wanted this to end.
Why don't we move down to the East Plaza, and we'll give you all a sound bite from that deputy. Okay?
All right, and you're with Precinct 8, is that correct? You're about to open up the Beltway, is that right?
We're fixing to open up the tollway. We've had traffic blocked for quite a while, and we want to get the roadway open. We'll meet you down at the East Plaza.
And just real quickly, it was one of your constables that put out the spikes, is that right?
That is correct.
How was he able to do that? Can you kind of give us a little bit of background?
Let me meet with you down there. We got cars coming up.
Clearly, you're ready to open up the Beltway. I understand. So obviously, they're going to open up the Beltway. Our truck is parked on the Beltway. We're going to need to go ahead and move at least back down to the tollway while authorities go ahead and reopen the Beltway. But at this point, the suspect is in custody. He surrendered on his own power after the police had been negotiating with him for the better part of an hour or so. Reporting live, Jeff Ealing, 13 Eyewitness News.
All right. Thank you so much, Jeff. Good work out there. And Dave Garrett just revealed a few minutes or so ago that they had more information about who the suspect was, and the officer just mentioned that he'd been involved in, and they suspect 2 prior robberies. Dave, can you tell us more about that?
That's correct, Gina. At least 2 other robberies, both in Alvin, one on July 20th, one on the 19th, one at a Pilgrim's Cleaners, another at a Dollar Tree, both taking place between 1 and 2 p.m. The robbery that he's wanted for off of 225 that sparked the chase this afternoon happened around 2 o'clock as well, I believe somewhere between 2 and 2:45. The chase lasted for about an hour and 40 minutes, as you know, all over southeast Houston through the Pasadena, Webster, Clear Lake area. He was driving completely erratically, hit several vehicles. We have some video, in fact, of the suspect striking a red truck, sideswipe a red truck. Right there is the video right before he hits that truck. Eventually, as the officers have mentioned, they were able to throw spikes down at a toll plaza just past Highway 3. They were able to flatten the 2 front tires, which crippled the truck and brought it to rest in Little Bayou right here at the East Belt between Vista and Fairmont Parkway. And as Jeff has said, and obviously here, he has given up, and they do have him in custody. That is him in the back seat of this police cruiser. They are at a point now where they're going to start to clear out traffic. I'm going to widen out and give you a better perspective here. There were several units, 10, 15, possibly even 20 units involved in this chase. They have now opened up northbound lanes on the Beltway. They will eventually open up the southbound lanes on the Beltway very soon here. So you start to see traffic flow in both directions on the Beltway. Also, some of the neighboring streets from Vista to Fairmont Parkway, Crenshaw, Genoa, Red Bluff down to Highway 3. The traffic will start to lighten up now as soon as they reposition all these officers and open up all of the roadways. That is the vehicle here. That is the white truck that we have been following all afternoon. Again, the chase lasting about an hour and 40 minutes to come to an end here off the East Belt in Little Bayou. And again, the suspect is now in custody after a standoff this afternoon. For now,
Dave, you had a perfect vantage point when he turned himself in. Can you describe what happened?
To be honest with you, Melanie, they had put us adhering to the SWAT standoff protocol. They had pushed us back a mile, and we were at about 1,800 feet trying to get as much altitude as we could. We were zoomed in as much as we could, and it seemed fairly quick. The standoff lasted quite a while, and then at some point he just decided to go ahead and give himself up. He got out of the truck. We were trying to get video of that, but we did not. We did eventually get video of him as soon as the SWAT team allowed us to get closer. We could see the officers walking him to the back of this unit. But,
that's what we're looking at right now, the video of him walking to the back of the unit.
Yeah, that is the video that happened just a few minutes ago of them walking the suspect to the unit, and it happened fairly quickly, so we weren't actually able to get it on video of him giving up. We could just barely see the top of the truck that he was driving. So we could not physically see him get out of the vehicle, but that is the video that we were able to catch when they allowed us to get closer to the scene. And now we are, of course, right on top of the vehicle, back now live. He is in the back seat of this police cruiser. Of course, they're going to question him and take him to an area facility. And just thankfully, things have ended peacefully here off of the East Belt between Vista and Fairmont Parkway.
That walk actually was so calm that we didn't quite realize that that's what we were seeing, the suspect giving himself up. It almost looked like officers were just merely walking toward the back of the vehicle. We saw movement at the top of the newscast, and that was, in fact, the suspect surrendering.
That's right, and perhaps the only hint was the fact that there were so many officers surrounding him. Suddenly there was a huge crowd of people around him, and there was some indication that perhaps there had been a major break in that case.
Well, as you have heard, the chase at many times put several people in danger. one person actually almost run down by the out-of-control driver. Continuing our team coverage, Eyewitness News reporter Jessica Willey.
I first caught up with the truck police were chasing in the Pasadena area near 225. It was in a residential neighborhood with no patrol units in sight on the ground, but a police helicopter following the truck in the air, twisting and turning. The truck then turned not onto another street, but into a wide open field. The helicopter was close by, and several patrol cars were in the field. The driver passed so close to an officer, it appears the officer fired, but the suspect driver just kept going. He almost lost control of his vehicle, but once back on the road, going fast, he was blowing through intersections into oncoming traffic, then heading towards Kemah, the Webster area. West on Bay Area Boulevard, he turned into yet another field and then into a church parking lot. All of that just in the first 45 minutes. Patrol units were often close, but never close enough to put an end to the chase. That turned yet again into an open field, running parallel to Highway 3, heading south and back to Bay Area Boulevard. The driver cuts through what appears to be an apartment parking lot. As the driver continues, he avoids a head-on collision, but bumps a patrol car and still gets away. Then it was back to the easement of Highway 3, finally getting to the road and turning south on the highway. It wasn't long before the driver made it to the Gulf Freeway, speeding north on the shoulder, blowing by other drivers. Eventually eastbound on the belt, law enforcement tried to stop the driver heading through a toll plaza. Look closely, and just a minute later, you can see the front tires flattened. That didn't keep the driver from stringing this out to the very end, crashing right into another truck, backing up and still desperately trying to get away with officers right behind him. It would only take about another minute for this chase, almost 2 hours long, to come to a crashing end.
And just to pick up where Jessica left off, we have highlighted the shot of the suspect there being led to the back of the police vehicle. Again, the shot of the back, from the back of his head. You can't see very well because we had to be kept at a far distance because SWAT teams were in control of the scene there. But you can see him clearly in the center with an officer. Kind of, it looks as though their arms are interwoven there. He now is in the back of the police vehicle. Apparently, he made a comment about just shoot me, please.
That's right, and obviously officers didn't want to do that. We want to show you this video once again. He did T-bone at least one red truck here. We did see him sideswipe several vehicles, but this is one he hit head on. This is very near the end when both of his tires are gone, front tires are gone. What we have since learned is that there was a 24-year-old woman and her 7-year-old son inside that truck. In fact, the 7-year-old son was sitting on the side that was directly hit by his truck. We are happy to report that both of them were not seriously injured. We don't know the full extent of their injuries, but we are told they were not seriously injured, thankfully. And as far as we know, there were no other serious injuries in this chase. And Gina, you know, so often that is not the case when we have chases like this. Well, we are continuing to follow this developing story, and we're going to bring you the very latest later on.
It started out as an armed robbery and quickly escalated into a dangerous game of catch me if you can. Police cruisers held their own on the pavement, but proved no match for the driver's four-wheel drive pickup when the action went off-road. Finally, after 90 minutes and 2 counties, splashdown. But it wasn't over yet. The chasing game became the waiting game.
Until he surrendered, there was no dialogue between the officer, the negotiator, and the suspect.
Then from jeopardizing the lives of drivers to begging officers to take his life.
The suspect got out of the vehicle that he's been in. He walked about halfway up the embankment towards the SWAT officers, put his hands up, made a comment to the effect of "shoot me."
That high-speed chase is just one of 3 big stories we're following.
We've got a lot to cover tonight, including the hunt
after a
for
robbery suspect drove his pickup off Beltway 8 near Fairmont Parkway. That started a standoff that lasted another hour and a half. Christina Garza is covering this story tonight. Christina, this all started at a dry cleaner's?
Yes, it did. And actually, that dry cleaners is not that far from where we are. That chase ended, though, right in this ditch behind me, right underneath the southbound lanes of the East Sam Houston Tollway between Fairmont Parkway and Vista. All we know at this hour about the suspect is that he was wanted in a series of armed robberies here in the Pasadena area that took place since late June. It was a fairly peaceful surrender after all, but it doesn't sound like the suspect wanted it that way.
He opened the door of his vehicle, he got out, he walked about halfway up the embankment toward the SWAT officers that were in contact with him. He had his hands in the air. He made a comment to the effect of, "Shoot me." And of course, the officers did not do that. There was no call for it.
For nearly 2 hours, SWAT officers kept their guns pointed at the driver of this partially submerged pickup truck as the Pasadena police officer tried to reason with him through a loudspeaker. This after the driver apparently threatened to kill himself on numerous occasions.
And he has periodically in the course of these negotiations been pointing the gun at his head and at least at one point in his mouth.
It all started after the suspect walked into the Queen Oaks dry cleaners here on Red Bluff in Pasadena. Employee Alex Peña wasn't there at the time, but his coworker was.
He came in asking for some dry cleaning prices, you know, and she gave it to him, and then he asked if he can borrow the phone. So he got the phone and ripped the cord off the wall and asking for the money and stuff.
The armed suspect left in his white pickup truck, but when he noticed police were on his trail, he simply refused to stop. During the hour-and-a-half high-speed chase through southeast Houston, police say the suspect fired his weapon, at one time hitting a patrol car. That officer wasn't hurt, but another one was, after crashing his unit while trying to catch up to the suspect. It wasn't until the driver reached the Beltway near Crenshaw that police were able to blow out his tires. The driver had no choice but to stop, and he did so after driving into this creek between Fairmont Parkway and Vista. And again, that suspect is currently being held at the Pasadena City Jail. We're live in Pasadena. I'm Christina Garza.
Live, local to you, Night Beat.
Caught on tape, a determined and desperate driver leading police on a wild ride through 2 counties, putting not only officers, but innocent drivers in danger. And then finally, the crashing in that then became the beginning of a terrifying standoff.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dominique Saxa.
And I'm Bill Baessa. For hours, we watched the frightening scene unfold. The chase, crash after crash, even bullets flying. Now tonight, we're learning more about the man at the center of it all. He's now in custody facing several charges, not only connected to the wild driving you see here, but to the armed robber and the robbery that police say started it all. KPRC Local 2 reporter Robert Arnold is live in Pasadena, Harris County with what has happened tonight and he's learned. Robert?
Right now, 58-year-old Kenneth Ray Poole is facing a slew of felony charges, everything from shooting at a police officer to armed robbery to reckless endangerment of pretty much anyone who got in his way during that chase. But even before today's chase, Poole is also a suspect in at least 6 other holdups. For 2.5 hours, Kenneth Ray Poole led a line of police cars from at least 5 different agencies on a winding chase from the neighborhoods of Pasadena to the Gulf Freeway, through the woods into a park and onto the Beltway. Poole sideswiped police officers and rammed just about anyone who got in his way. This man was rushed to the hospital, and Joanne Adams was more than a little rattled.
He came into this lane, and I was coming up to turn left, and he just banged me and went on.
Eventually, police forced Poole into the easy tag lane of the Beltway, where Sergeant J.D. McCullough threw out the spikes.
With him going through the lane, we were able to get the spikes out and spike his tires, and he didn't go much farther after the tires were spiked.
Poole finally lost control and careened into a crowded parking lot.
My heart was beating like 90 to nothing.
The chase then ended when Poole did a nosedive into this ditch. SWAT officers quickly geared up as other officers raced into position to keep Poole from escaping. With AR-15 machine guns trained on him, Poole kept officers at bay for at least an hour by threatening suicide. Then he suddenly stepped out of the truck.
He walked about halfway up the embankment toward the SWAT officers, with his hands up, made a comment to the effect of, "Shoot me." Obviously, the officers chose not to do that.
Officers found the gun detectives say Poole used to rob an 80-year-old woman working at the Queen Oaks dry cleaners in Pasadena, a robbery that began this entire ordeal.
Yeah, I believe he had a gun. They said that he wanted the money, so he gave her the money, and he took her purse, and he just got in the truck and took off.
Pasadena police say Poole is also a suspect in at least 4 other robberies. Now, late tonight, we also got a call from the police chief in Alvin, Mike Merkel, who says Poole is also a suspect in at least 2 more robberies in that city. We're live in Pasadena, Harris County. I'm Robert Arnold, KPRC Local 2.
You never got to see the suspect, but he has gray hair. He's in his 50s and of average height and build. Local 2 checked Poole's criminal background and found that he's got several misdemeanor charges in Columbus, Colorado, including drug possession and unlawfully carrying a weapon.